friends. Welcome to Luciano's Logic. I hope that you are having a great night tonight. It has been a hot minute since the last stream that we did, but I wanted to gradually ease YouTube back into, I guess, the sort of regularly scheduled content that I create. I suspect that it will be going live in the next few seconds, hopefully. Cool, it is. I love to see it. I am super excited to be here. Today is a chill stream. Chill streams are always super chill, obviously, hence the name. We do lots of little things. In today's chill stream, after a conversation I had with Jessica, who is in the comment section right now, yesterday, I wanted to just take some time to share childhood stories of mine. I often regale Jessica with childhood stories, especially because when we talk on the phone, I'm often sleepy, and it's easy for me to just sort of talk about my childhood. In order for any of this to make a whole bunch of sense, I think it's important that I talk about a few things first. One of the big things I want to start off by saying is that I am a military brat. Specifically, I am an Army brat. My dad is still in the armed services, and my mom was in the Army, but she retired after I was born. My dad is a career soldier who's been in the military his entire life, pretty much. And I myself, in the chat, not the comment section, I'm doing my best, Smitty. I'm super glad that so many peeps are chilling here with us today. That's super exciting. But yeah, my family has just a very long history of working in the armed services. I myself have no particular interest in joining the military, but the door on my right is the the door on my right is the door to my bathroom, and usually I try to close it during live streams. The door behind me is actually a closet, and it is impossible to close fully, and that's part of the reason why I think that there's maybe one live stream that I've done where it was actually fully closed. The overwhelming majority of the live streams I have done, it has not been closed. Usually it's open a little bit like that. It would be open wider and you would be able to see more of like my messy space, where I like put all of my clothes and stuff, if it wasn't for the fact that I have an object keeping it shut. But yeah, the door to my right's a bathroom, and I just always keep it shut. Unfortunately, sometimes it does just sort of lock itself. Goodness, I hate it so much. Today I had to call the same maintenance person that I called to unlock it when it locked itself a few weeks ago because my fire alarms were going off. It was just my fire alarms, and it was the most annoying thing in the world. At like 1 in the afternoon my time, the fire alarms just sort of started going off, and they would sometimes shut off for a few minutes just to make you think that they were like back to normal and that you would be able to continue not losing all of your sanity. And then they decided that they would just be like, haha, it was a prank. And the prank was us turning off. We're back on. We got you. And that was really annoying. There was a solid period today where I thought that I was actually going to have to reschedule this live stream because there was no possible way that people would have sat here and listened to me talk for like probably close to an hour about my childhood. If the fire alarm was blaring in the background, it would be the loudest and most annoying sound in the world. So I'm very glad that I don't have to deal with that shit. I'm very glad that we were able to get it turned off. Also, hey Tria, I'm so excited that so many people are showing up. I wasn't expecting so many peeps to stop by. I did just decide to do this pretty last minute, but do I live alone? I do live alone. So the reason I can't do something with my closet at the very least is that there's too much stuff in my closet and there isn't enough space in the rest of my like room for me to actually go and fix it. I live alone right now. I had roommates and my roommates moved out. My roommates have known each other for a long time. They've known like I think that they were like childhood friends, and they moved in together. They moved in together here, and then now they have their own place elsewhere. And I'm just like, yeah. But yeah. So today we are going to be talking about childhood stories. I didn't have. I feel like I had a pretty interesting childhood. Sorry, I just like felt something like attack my foot. That's the reason why I looked down for a second. But yeah, I had a pretty interesting childhood. I was born in the United States. I was born specifically in Fort Bragg, which is in North Carolina. And I spent an early part of my childhood in Fort Bragg. And then I moved over to Georgia. Let's see. The floor is a shelf. I do have my comments off to my side, so I can see them, and I will try to look at them every once in a while. Also, I am going to share a comment every few minutes that I just have copied and pasted. This month has been a little bit of a trickier month financially, so if peeps enjoy my content and if peeps have the money to help me out, that would be pretty cool. I would really appreciate it. But yeah, I was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Specifically, I was born in Fort Bragg, but people always get confused when I talk about that. I spent the earliest part of my childhood there before I moved to Panama with my family. We lived in Panama not too long after the dictator Noriega got kicked out, and we lived in a military base, and that was super interesting. Because my family is military and because my family, all of us are Spanish speakers, we stayed together most of my childhood. We weren't like one of those families. Thanks, Shy. I appreciate that. It does help. I'm not saying that it has to be like a whole lot. I'm just saying, in case anyone can help me out, this month has not been the greatest financially. So yeah, I've been doing my best, but it's just been a long month. But yeah. So I was born in Fayetteville, yada, yada, yada. I lived in Panama for a few years. I lived in Panama from when I was 3 until I was 5. And that was actually the first place that I ever went to school. I didn't go to school the way that like Americans think. I went to a daycare where they tried to teach us like how to read and all that sort of stuff. That didn't work for me. I actually didn't learn how to read until I was almost 7. I, for some reason, had a really difficult time learning how to read. There aren't any super cool stories that are about like that specific era in my life, mostly because I don't remember that much. I am 25 right now, and that was just a while ago. So I don't have like that many fun stories. One story that is sort of connected to that part of my life. I first learned how to ride the bike when I was 5. I first learned how to ride it when I was living in Georgia, which was where I lived after I lived in Colombia. Not in Colombia, in Panama. I've lived in so many places that sometimes they all just sort of start to blend together. And I've talked to other military people, especially other military kids, and that's a pretty common experience, especially if your family stays together for a while. I was actually pretty lucky in the sense that my family was able to stay together for most of my childhood. There were a couple of years where my dad was stationed in places where like families just didn't go. But look, I can't help that so many of my friends who chill on my live streams and stuff are like not the same age as me, but like I live right next to a college campus. I regularly walk to a college campus. I'm technically still a college student. And among those peeps, I am an old, but then like I go onto my channel and apparently I am baby. So it's very confusing when I go to campus and then I come back and I stream and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm always just a very different age than everyone around me. Just the goofiest thing. But yeah. So when I was little, I first learned how to ride the bike when I was 5. I was actually pretty good at riding the bike on training wheels. And I decided one day, and my mom decided that she was going to teach me how to ride the bike without training wheels. So she was going to teach me how to actually ride the bike, like for real. And I was super excited, and I was actually pretty solid at it at first. I had a grand old time I had a grand old time biking around Fort Benning, which was where I lived. And that's actually where I would go to high school and I would graduate when I came back a few years later. But yeah. And one day I had a really, really, really bad accident. I had a frequency of dad noises increased 500%. I had a like really bad accident to the point where like I injured my leg, and it turns out that that was the first time I would injure my leg, but it was far from the only one. It was very, very far from the only one. Goodness, I injured my leg like this weekend. So that's not great. Yeah. I've had a long week, which is just not the funnest thing to say when it's a Wednesday, you know? But yeah, so after that, I was afraid of riding a bike for a really long time. This would actually continue until I was about 15. I think actually when I was chatting with Jessica, because I had told her the story last night, I'm pretty sure I was actually like 13. I was younger than I am now, but not. This wasn't like something that was like super long ago. And the video game Super Smash Brothers Brawl came out. And in case it's not super obvious, I am someone who likes video games. You can actually see a PlayStation 3 in the background. I have tried to sell the PlayStation 3 and no one wants to buy it. And I really, really wish they would. It would be great to get rid of that thing. I don't have a TV and I don't know how to plug it into my computer, so I can't really do anything with it. But yeah. So wait, Shy, are you trying to share? Shy, if you're trying to share a link, give me a second. I will add you as a moderator. There. You're on my channel often enough. Yeah. Now you should be able to share links. If you're not a moderator on YouTube, then you will not be able to share links in like a live stream. That's the reason why I'm a moderator over on your channel, because there was a time when I was trying to share a link. But yeah, now you should be able to. So if that's what you were trying to do, do it again. Yeah. Sorry about that. I decided to try and ask my mom to buy the video game Super Smash Brothers Brawl for me. And she was just like, you know what? I feel like entertaining this nonsense for a little bit. So go ahead and give me a reason to buy you this video game. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'll learn how to ride a bike. If you like, I'll relearn how to ride a bike if you go ahead and let me get this video game. And she was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and entertain the silliness. She bought me the video game, and I spent I spent that entire summer playing Super Smash Brothers Brawl, but I also did learn how to ride the bike again. And ever since, I have ridden a bike. I rode a bike pretty regularly for the rest of my childhood up until I moved to Honduras, which was a few years later. And even in Honduras, I actually still rode a bike pretty frequently. I went mountain biking with my mom from time to time, and mountain biking is a whole other monster. If you've only ever ridden a bike on like a road and you decide that you're going to go on like a nature trail, or you decide that you're going to go like up a mountain or something, even if it's a small one, that is a whole other beast. And I was not prepared for that in any way. So that was just not the funnest time to do anything related to that. But yeah, so I do know how to ride the bike. I haven't ridden a bike in a while just because I don't live in a place that's super great for riding bikes. I live in Greensboro, North Carolina, but I don't live like on the outskirts where there's like nature trails and stuff. I live near a college campus, and because of that, it's not the smartest or the funnest thing to try and ride bikes where I live. It would be cool if it was, and actually on campus itself, there are a few places where you could ride a bike. There were actually mountains. What are these mountains? But yeah, so that was my childhood experience with bikes. I really liked them at first, and then I was scared of them, and then I liked them again. And that, unfortunately, has not been my same experience with cars. I don't have a driver's license. I have a permit, but it's expired. I need to go and like renew it as soon as the DMV where I live opens up again. I am just not a car person. I wish I could be. I think it'd be cool to be able to like drive and stuff, but I just can't. Hey Emily, how's it going? It's super cool that you're stopping by. I didn't even know that you had a YouTube channel. That's cool. But yeah, Emily is actually one of my pals from this area, which is super exciting. Most of my friends who like are from this area are not people who are like super online. Most of us only have Facebook, and apparently that marks us as people who are not super youthful anymore, at least according to someone who's in the chat. According to someone who's in the chat right now, if you have a Facebook, that's a sign that you are an old. And I mean, I often feel like an old in my soul, but normally, because of my friends and my friend group, I am often the baby. So That's the way that life is. But a place that I actually lived for a longer period of time than most places was Colombia. My father worked for the US military, and he was stationed in Colombia in 2004 up until just about 2007. And we lived there all together. We lived in a place called Melgar, which is just a really small city right next to a military base called Tolemaida. And Tolemaida, among other things, is the like headquarters for the Colombian Special Forces. And at the time, that was one of the things that my dad did. He helped teach Colombian Special Forces. He was one of those foreign teachers or whatever. My dad, just like everyone in my family, myself included, is a native Spanish speaker because we're all Puerto Rican. I'm actually one of the only peeps in my direct family that was born in the continental United States. Most of my family was born super in Puerto Rico, and oftentimes not in like San Juan, which is the capital city, but like in much smaller places. So it's super interesting to me to like chat with my family about what things were like growing up, because even though I am very young compared to most of the people in my family, I am also someone who was raised in Latin America, and in like Latin America, not even like in Puerto Rico, which is a part of the United States, but like in Central or South America. When I lived in Colombia, I lived there for almost 3 years, and I was homeschooled. And that was a very interesting experience because my mom is actually a teacher. That's the thing that she's done since she's retired. With a few exceptions, there have been periods during my childhood where she was doing something else. But for the most part, she was definitely a teacher. She has a degree in education, and she worked teaching Spanish, teaching English, and a few other subjects. But when I lived in Colombia, because we were living in the countryside, she decided that it would be better for her to just homeschool me. Originally, this was because we thought that there weren't any really good private schools in the area where we lived. We would find out a few years later on from one of our neighbors, who was my best friend at the time, that there actually are really solid private schools. But at that point, we had already been teaching me in homeschool for over a year and a half. And we're like, you know what? We're just going to stick with this. We've come this far. We're basically just going to apply the sunk cost fallacy. It wouldn't really be the move if you decided to just go to a private school now. Especially because my mom had a lot of fun teaching me. Not just because it kept her from like not doing anything, but also just because I really liked learning as a kid. That's part of the reason why it is that I'm still in school even now, which is not something that a lot of people in my friend group are. I am definitely one of the unusual peeps for still being in school. I'm also one of the unusual peeps in my particular group of friends because I'm actually trying to get a master's degree, and I am like 99% of the way done. Unfortunately, this internship has just been killing me this summer. I have been trying to do internship stuff, and it just hasn't been able to work out. Among other things, there was a period during the summer in which I was like really sick. I was pretty online during the summer, so it's really difficult to tell. But most of July, I was just not great physically. It was a rough period. I don't know what was going on. I did go and get COVID tested, which is not something that I told anyone. I got tested negative, but that was pretty recent. Like that was less than 3 weeks ago. So just it's been an interesting summer. It's been a really frustrating summer too, but I'm super happy that we're through it. I'm super happy that UNCG is in fact opening up and is doing stuff. I have strong opinions about the way that my university is handling some stuff, which I have told people who either are UNCG peeps or were UNCG peeps. I've talked about this on Twitter. My university is a very interesting place, and I am still there because I am going to the same institution that I got my undergraduate degree in to get my master's degree. I actually spoke to my mom today, and she asked me what I wanted to do next with my education. And I told her that I would like to get a PhD, like long term. And she asked me if I could go to UNCG, and I said I could, which is good given my program. I'm studying peace and conflict studies. There's definitely not like that much stuff that places have related to my specific field. I do want to get a PhD in my area. I want to get one in peace and conflict studies, and that definitely limits my options. I am not studying history or anything like I did for my undergraduate degree. I'm trying to become a conflict mediator, and I'm trying to be able to become someone who can help people think about the conflicts that they have and can help people talk about that sort of thing and can help people work through it. I think that's something that I would be really good at. It's something that I enjoy doing in the occasions that I've done it. And it's just something that I think would be super cool. Unfortunately, getting a doctorate in that specific field is definitely not the easiest thing to do, especially if I decide to go somewhere other than my current university, which I very well might. So, yeah. But when I lived in Colombia, we lived in Melgar, which was a super interesting experience. The way that my family handled this military move was not something that I have recently found out wasn't super common. The way that we did it was that my dad moved there first. He moved there for a solid 2 weeks and he got like everything set up to a limited extent. He found a hotel where we would be staying at for a few weeks. This changed when we moved to Honduras. We handled it more or less the same, but to very different results, which I probably will talk about later on in this video for people who are curious as to what it's like being a military brat and all that sort of stuff. I'm not the only military person in this chat. Interestingly enough, it's just that the other military person here had a very different experience growing up as a child of the armed services than I did, because they didn't have to move around all that often, or even at all. I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying to not like say names or whatever, but like that's a conversation I've had with that person, and it was super interesting to me that to hear that their experiences were so different, because everyone that I knew who was a military person was defined by like their lives constantly being uprooted. And that counts both for people who were directly in the service themselves and for their families and children. Like if you were an army brat, I like how Tria just comes out and she's like, yeah, no, that's me. Uh, I moved around incredibly often. I know people who had it worse than I did, but they're definitely not that many. Oof, goodness, there were not that many people that I knew who were military kids who moved as often as I did. I lived in Colombia for almost 3 years, and I lived in Honduras for about 2.5. And both cases were definitely very interesting experiences that had super long-term impact on the rest of my life. I've actually written about being a military kid before on some of my different blogs and stuff. But yeah, I knew that you guys had like a special cause. So I know that there's like a reason for you guys to be so different. It's just really interesting to me because when I graduated from high school, I actually wasn't the last person to enter my high school. In my specific graduating class, I moved from Honduras to Georgia, to Fort Benning, Georgia, which is right next to Columbus. I moved from there to there in December of 2012. And it was very weird because I moved into my high school. I didn't move into my high school, but you guys know what I mean. I moved into the place where I would finish high school. And I was not the last military person to come in, even though I came in at the very beginning of my last semester. There was a girl whose parents were in the Air Force, and she came in April, and she came in less than 2 weeks before we had our prom. And she came in less than 5 days before I would visit UNCG, which is where I went to college, for the very first time. So, like, at that point, I had already gotten accepted into the college I was going to go to. I was doing a thing called Destination UNCG, and I do not know if that's a thing that they still do. I know they didn't do it this year, just because this year was COVID, and right when they normally do it is April, which was when everything was starting to suck. As a student who was on campus at UNCG, April was when they were just like, oh shit. At April, they had already like shut everything down, but they were realizing that they were just going to have to do some stuff for next semester in April. So, yeesh. But yeah, so I would move just every few years and it would be pretty regular. But when I lived in Colombia, we first moved into a hotel in Bogota, which is the capital city. And we stayed there for about 3 weeks, which is longer than we normally would in most places that we have lived in. The reason why we had to do that was because it was really difficult for us to find housing in the area that we were going to be moving to. We weren't staying in Bogota. Remember that we were going to Melgar, so we had to find housing in Melgar. When we realized that that was going to be where we were, we moved into a really fancy hotel in Melgar, which we would end up staying in for almost 5.5 months. And those 5.5 months were the beginning of me just gradually beginning to get like homeschooled and stuff. I ended up moving when we moved to Colombia. We did it like, I guess, the right way. We waited until the very end of the school year, and that was when my mom and I boarded the plane to go to Colombia. We flew from Raleigh to Miami and then from Miami to Bogota. And this was in like 2004, I think. That was a super fun experience for me because I was not used to staying on an airplane for that long. We had to move from airplane to airplane when we got to Miami, which was the first place that we stopped. But it was still really weird for us. My mom woke me up at like 5 in the morning and we got on the first plane, and then we would end up being in the air for the overwhelming majority of that day, because that's not like an ultra long flight, but that's definitely longer than going from like Houston, Texas to Tegucigalpa, which was the way that we would end up doing it when we moved to Honduras. I remember this so distinctly because these were some of the only years in my life where I was actually on planes. I haven't been on a plane in a minute. I actually went on a plane last year when I was going to visit my family in DC, but that was like once. That's the last time that I've been on a plane. And then I went on a plane like once or twice when I was in college, just because my family, being military, lived in so many different places. When I first went to UNCG, they were living in Georgia still. And then shortly after I started attending UNCG, they moved over to DC. And then I would end up moving to DC as a grown adult and live with them for about a year or so, just to find work and stuff. Not too long after I graduated. But that's adult stuff. That's not what we're here for right now. We're here for baby stories. So when I lived in Colombia, one of the first things that really happened to my family was just a sort of like really long story that ended up taking a hot minute. What ended up happening was when we were flying from Miami to Bogota, there was a girl who was like 16 who was right next to me. I started talking to her because as a child, I was incredibly social, which is comically funny now. That's just not the way that I am as like an adult. As an adult, I am extremely unsocial. But as a child, I was apparently the most social person in the world. So I guess this is just nature's way of balancing itself out. And I chatted with her pretty much the entire plane ride, which was a good like 4.5 hours. And when we got off the airplane, I was like, okay, I'll see you around. And I meant it like jokingly, because at that point I'd already been on enough airplane rides and I had already like traveled even by myself a few times. So I knew that like I wasn't going to be seeing her again. But it turns out that I saw her multiple times throughout the rest of the time that I lived in Colombia. We ended up staying at the same hotel because she was a student who was like trying to do one of the really weird things where you go as like an international high schooler and you go from one school to another in another country. It's kind of like if you're a college student, how you can do that. I didn't realize as a young child that that was a really common thing for high schoolers to do, because in the United States, that is not at all a common thing for high schoolers to do. But it turns out in other countries, it's not quite as uncommon. So I would see her when we were at the hotel that we were staying at. And then when we finally moved over to Melgar, which was where we would end up living for the vast majority of the time that we were in Colombia, I saw her again because it turns out she was staying at that same hotel, which was just ridiculous. I wouldn't see her super often because the hotel that we were staying at was a hotel that was built to house like a few hundred people. There's no real objective reason for this hotel to exist because Melgar is not a big city, and it's not at all a place that deserves like a super fancy hotel. The closest argument, hey Callan, The closest argument that I could think of, and this is something that Jessica and I discussed on the phone the other day, is basically the idea that, like, because there was a white people military base not too far from it, they were just like, yeah, some of the military people would probably want to stay in nicer places than like the sort of typical hotels that Columbia has, which are by no means bad. My family and I stayed in Colombian hotels that were just like regular hotels, and they were really nice. It's just that they weren't up to par with the like super fancy one that we stayed in. I thought it was really weird at the time because I had gone to like Puerto Rico and stuff, and our hotels were not that nice either. To put it in perspective, this hotel had like a zoo that you could go to, a little lake that you could like just sort of chill in, and also like a fancy restaurant and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So there was just no real reason for this place to be as nice as it is, but it was cool. My family was super excited to stay there for almost half of a year. We ended up staying there for an embarrassingly long period of time because finding housing for us was just so annoying. I am going to post that message that I talked about earlier. So yeah, it's basically just like a copy of the thing that you can see if you check out the description. But yeah, if you are enjoying the content that I create, I stream regularly on Twitch where I am just having much more adventures than this. I just wanted to hop on back over to my YouTube channel for a little bit. I am still planning to do my Saturday series, not this Saturday, because this Saturday is a special Saturday. But it's just been, you know, a hell summer, I guess, to like put it lightly. In terms of like my personal life, I've really enjoyed the summer. This has been the best summer that I've like ever had. The problem is that in terms of the world, the summer has really sucked. It's definitely been a very apocalyptic year, so that's not fun. But yeah, Colombia was actually a super fun period of my life just because, among other things, when we actually picked the house that we would be staying in, it was a super cool house. There were lots of kids my age for me to interact with, both Colombian kids and also like other American kids, because the specific neighborhood that I lived in was a really fancy gated community, but it was one where like everyone knew each other and stuff. One of the funnier stories that I often remember from my childhood is that I was not a big fan of sliding glass doors. If you ever wonder why I'm not a big fan of sliding glass doors, these glasses are super real. And I've had these glasses since I was about 6. So yeah, if you think about that, and if you think about sliding glass doors, I'm sure you can start to piece together some of the story that I'm going to be telling right now. But when I was younger and I was living in Colombia, I had a friend named Daniel. And Daniel was one of the older kids in our neighborhood. He was an American kid. He was half Hispanic and half white. His family were just like State Department people who were stationed over in Tolomida, just because they were able to help with like medical stuff. And they had a really cool house that I would often go to. The first time I went over to their house, I had a super fun experience with sliding glass doors where I found out that sliding glass doors were a thing. That was not a thing that I had ever experienced. And my brain was not smart enough to put together that, like, if there's an open space and something is obviously a doorway, there's probably something that's blocking people from getting inside because there was no door there. And my brain didn't think to be like, hey, maybe I can't see it. But the very first time I ever went over to, we were going to go and we were going to play video games. I was the second oldest kid in the neighborhood at the time, and I was one of the only other Americans at the time. And he was not super fluent in Spanish at this point. So he was just like, yeah, it's super cool to have someone that like I can chat with and stuff. We should go ahead and we should go inside. And he was just like, hey, you should go in first, because he thought that I could see. Like, he wasn't trying to make fun of me. It turns out that I could not see. And I would argue I have never been able to see. So I walk into the sliding glass door and I proceed to just slam into it. I was walking full speed. I was a confident child, and I should have been humbled by that experience. It turns out that I was not humbled by that experience. And the reason I know this is, are you sure that's my hashtag? It's not working. Let me try it like this. Also, I appreciate that. I think that, I don't know how Cash App works. I think that that might be it. Hopefully. But yeah. Um, So I was fine after that. I was a little bit humbled by the experience, which I think is definitely a good thing. It turns out that that might have rattled my brain because I proceeded to very quickly not remember that that door was there. And it turns out that that was not a good thing, as I'm sure you could imagine if you think creatively about what might happen next. Daniel and I get along very well the first time we meet. We would always get along well, and even years later, we would still chat sometimes. Only like a few times. We haven't chatted that many times since both of us left Columbia, but we are Facebook friends and stuff. And what ended up happening was a few weeks later, I would go over to hang out at his house, and as I was leaving, I would forget that the door was a sliding glass door, and I would try to walk out of it when it was closed again. And I just, ever since then, I have looked at sliding glass doors, and I have questioned to myself internally, is it really necessary for there to be a sliding glass door? The answer is always no. Sliding glass doors are never necessary. They are cool aesthetically. I like them. But the problem that you guys have to remember is that, like, some people just can't see. And I know that, like, people should be able to see sliding glass doors. I should be able to see a sliding glass door. Objectively, I just can't. That's just not like a thing that I've ever been particularly good at. It's Lucy. That's true, Tria. It's just true. Frankly, I have a similar problem with Windows, but at least with Windows, I can tell via context where like a window should be. So I have never like walked into a window. I can just sort of like guess via inference that there's probably a window there, so I don't look like a complete idiot. Um, yeah. So for the next story, I am going to flash us forward a little bit. I'm going to tell a little bit about what happened after Columbia. This story is one of my personal favorite stories, and last time I had like a little storytelling live stream, I considered telling it, but the last time I had a little storytelling live stream was when we were doing the Christmas stream, which I'm definitely going to be doing again this year. I really, really like Christmas, and I really like Christmas streams. But it wasn't a Christmas stream. It was a summer story. And this is another really like a sad one, but it's one that makes me laugh. When I was in the 6th grade, I had just left Columbia. My family, we had moved away, and we had moved back to Fayetteville, North Carolina. At the time, middle schools in Fayetteville were not that great. So my mom was wondering where she should send me to middle school. She didn't want me to keep on being homeschooled. She wanted to like work. She wanted me to just sort of like readjust to being in the United States in the best way possible. So after talking with some of our military friends, like some of the families that we would get along with and stuff, she ended up sending me to a school called Fayetteville Christian School. I have actually talked about this pretty extensively in a number of live streams, but this is a pretty innocuous story that doesn't make the school seem really sucky, which is one of the reasons why I'm excited to tell it here, because it's nice to not make them out to be like the antagonists, because lots of the people at that school at the time were really nice, and I didn't realize just how bad going to a Christian school would be on me, a queer person, because, you know, I didn't realize at that time that I was queer. But the summer between 6th and 7th grade was the summer after I had attended my first full year at Fayetteville Christian Schools. And I had decided that I really wanted to be on the soccer team. And Fayetteville Christian Schools, at the very least the middle school section, because it's a K through 12 school, had a really interesting policy when it came to like their soccer stuff. They're just like, hey, we don't cut students from our teams. We have like one of those teams that students just don't get cut. Unless like you get kicked out of the school, obviously. But something that we do ask that students do is we ask that students go to our little training camps. We have a training camp that takes place the first month of every summer. And during it, we do like physical conditioning and we help the students get in shape and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, cool. And my mom was like, cool. It was also super convenient because it turns out that I am not good at numbers. If you put numbers in front of me, I don't understand them. And my family didn't fully understand that until I almost failed sixth grade math, which was at that school, it was like baby algebra. Which was a sign of just how not good I am at math and numbers, because algebra is the easiest math. It's just not easy for me to do. Or no, it was arithmetic. It was like advanced arithmetic, not algebra. Those are not the same thing. I am not good at numbers. Um, really got to emphasize just how not good at numbers I am, y'all. I think it's important that people feel me when it comes to this. I was being sent to summer school, and it wasn't that big of an issue. It's just that like I just didn't do super great that year when it came to doing like math stuff. So just like, yeah, we'll be able to we'll be able to send you to summer school. You'll be able to hang out for a few hours, get some lunch and all that sort of stuff. And then you'll be able to go to your little training camps, which is super cool because that year my family was moving. They were moving from one house in Fayetteville to a house in Rayford. I would keep on going to the same school for another year before my mom got work in another county, in which case I would go to a public school, and I'm very glad I went to a public school. I would be a very shitty person if I had stayed at Fayetteville Christian schools much longer than I did. It made me a super sucky person for a really long time, like an embarrassingly long time. But I'm not trying to villainize the school. So I'm just not going to do that now. It's really hard because, God, I hate that school now. But as a kid, I was just like, yeah, Fayetteville Christian School is where all my friends are. Because I was one of those kids. I went over to the little training camp on my first day. It was super cool. I really liked doing numbers because we had a teacher who was giving us individual attention. I know I said the camp, I meant summer school. Sometimes words get mixed up in my head, and I just talk so much that I just have to power through it. But during summer school, it was super cool because we had a teacher who was actually able to help us individually. She was able to give us the individual attention that we needed. There's a real possibility that I have the condition that's dyslexia, but with numbers. This is something that has continued to be like a persistent problem for me, even as an adult. It's just that now I'm capable of doing basic math without too much difficulty, especially because of D&D. Because of D&D, I'm able to do so much basic math without any problems whatsoever. The problem is that I am not capable of doing the other maths at all. I look at them and I just get scared. But I spent the first morning that day at the summer school, and it was super chill because I was with my friends and I was with a really nice teacher who's just like, yeah, I wasn't able to give you guys individual attention during our regular classes because there are literally 30 of you and there's only one of me. But now there's one of me and like 5 of you, and we're here until like noon. So yeah, let's go ahead and get the numbers done. And it made a lot of sense to me. The whole point of this story, though, is not summer school. It's the training camp. My first day of training camp, I had an adventure. I was able to do the first part of school. I was able to do like the first part of the training camp really easily because it was just like lifting weights and stuff, and it was like basic conditioning. But on the first day of that particular year's little camp, they decided that they really want to drill into you just how inferior you are to a high school athlete, which, if you ask me, is the weirdest fucking flex in the world. They want to send sixth graders who are going into seventh grade up against literal high schoolers, and they're just like, yeah, this isn't going to end badly. And then they saw me and they realized that, hey, maybe it does end badly sometimes. Because they made me be the goalie, which was a position I kind of liked. And I was just like, yeah, I'm going to be like a super good goalie, and I'm going to like work really hard and stuff. And I'm going to stop so many soccer balls. Hell yeah. I was super amped. I was super excited. I was ready to block the balls. And I did not succeed at that. So what ended up happening was I was able to do fine the first like few minutes of this. Mostly because my team was like hella aggressive. They're just like, yeah, we're obviously going to get fucking wrecked if we are not the people who are like controlling the pace of this. And they were doing really good. But it turns out that when one of the high school kids got the ball, he's just like, hey, I'm really tired of you guys trying to aggressively control the pace. So what if I just charge straight at your goalie and just don't stop? He was able to successfully do that. He was doing the thing from like High School Musical where you like fake left and then break right, but with soccer, which was a thing that I did not know was an option as a child. I did not know that you could apply things from one sport to another sport, even though as a little kid, I was actually pretty sporty. I did martial arts, I did tennis, I did cross country. I am not a sporty adult. I am not at all a sporty adult. I don't like sports anymore. But as a kid, I was like all over the place. So you would think my animal brain would be able to piece that together. But this fucking giant, redefining David versus Goliath over here looking ass, came at me. And then when he saw that I was probably going to be able to successfully stop him from like getting a goal, he kicked the ball. And he kicked it into my face. And I originally would have wanted to block it with my face, but I didn't want to block it with like here, which was what happened. It hit my nose, smashed my glasses into my face, and made me fall backwards. At the time, my family felt like flexing, and I had the like sports goggles that like student athletes wear. Student athletes. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. If you are a visually challenged person, you've probably seen the weird fucking goggles that like have the like things where like it's connected. It's just really weird. I had those, so it wasn't as bad as if I had like these, but it still sucked. Oh, it was awful. But the other students were definitely impressed at me. They were just like, yo, are you okay? And even though I was crying, I was just like, okay, this is a chance for me to look tough. I'm going to like be strong, and I'm gonna like try to not cry. And it did not work, but everyone was both impressed that I stopped it with my face and pitying me for getting what was probably a concussion. Honestly, like a soccer ball itself might not have that much force, but I was a literal child and it got kicked by a teenage athlete into my face. So just yikes. That's actually like one of my favorite stories from my childhood, just because it gives you so much perspective into my mind. I'm not good at math. I try my best at sports, but I don't succeed. And I am often forced to just sort of suffer through things. At this point, I didn't have my leg injuries that would like basically hobble me as an adult. For those of you who don't know, I actually have mobility issues. They're usually pretty slight, but this entire year has just fucking sucked for that. When I lived in Honduras, which I thought we were going to talk about today, but it's almost an hour and we're probably not going to have time to get like super into it. When I lived in Honduras, I almost did the like plural thing. Like all of us were living in Honduras, which we were not at the time. I injured my leg when we first moved to Honduras, like super like 2 weeks into my time in Honduras. Not 2 weeks, like 5 weeks into my time in Honduras. I had like just started going to school and stuff. I injured my leg. I injured it because I was trying to practice the dance, and it was just not great. I did not succeed at that. I did my best, and my best was not good enough. So I injured my leg, and with me, a really annoying thing that happens with my leg is that oftentimes it will just sort of struggle through when it first gets injured. And I won't notice the day that it gets the injury, but I will notice later on. I will notice the next day, which is exactly what happened both times that I injured my leg in Honduras. The next day, I tried to get out of the couch that I was sleeping on because we were staying in a hotel, and that didn't work. I fell onto my face and I couldn't go to school because I couldn't walk. About a year and a half later, when we were starting to get closer to the end of my time in Honduras, I was doing karate and stuff, and I injured my leg doing like one of those super high kicks. If anyone is curious, the martial arts that I have been trained in over the course of my life are Salat, karate, and Taekwondo. I have also done a little bit of Krav Maga and Muay Thai. I have done some of those as an adult and then some of those as like a kid. Karate, Taekwondo, and Muay Thai, not Muay Thai, Salat I did as a kid, and then Krav Maga and Muay Thai I did as an adult. Including after I injured my leg, I have tried to just sort of struggle through. But yes, Shy, martial arts. I actually do know martial arts. I'm not very good at them, mostly because of my leg, but I still know them, and I quite enjoy martial arts. I am actually super fond of martial arts. I just wish that I could like do them as an adult. And if I try to do anything that involves leg things, that doesn't go well for me. But yeah, when I was living in Honduras, I was learning karate. It was super fun. I really liked it. I would actually recommend that people experience it themselves. I think that everyone should learn some form of martial arts. Maybe not like super intensely, but I think it would be cool if people learned how to like throw punches and stuff. There actually are several martial arts I can do just fine. Most of the time, I still sometimes do martial arts. I have friends that I spar with from time to time. But obviously this year has not been a great year for that sort of thing because, among other things, my leg, which I actually did re-injure doing martial arts. This year as an intern, I had to, I'm going to tell one adult story before I end the stream. And I don't mean adult like not safe for work. I mean like adult, like this is me as an adult. This year, in order to finish my degree, I had to join an internship, which is bullshit. If your degree, if you are like a university administrator and you are requiring someone to do an unpaid internship of any sort, fuck you. Oh my God, just fuck you into oblivion. I cannot stress enough how much fuckery my internship has forced me to endure. Not the internship itself, but the internship requirements. Oh my goodness. My internship itself has been super fun and I've loved it. I was an intern at a high school and I helped teach a program where I, among other things, I helped teach students martial arts and also peace and conflict skills. So that way students can gain the bodily confidence needed to defend themselves and also the sort of attitudinal confidence needed to peacefully resolve conflicts. It's a super great program, but Jesus fucking Christ, I wish that it was not something that I was required to do. Oh my goodness. It fucking sucks because this is the reason I don't have my degree, even though what ended up happening to my program was fucking COVID. I cannot help that there is a global pandemic. It is not my fault, and I should not be punished or kept from the degree that I have paid several $1,000s to acquire. But in one of our last sessions this year, it was like in very early March. It was like the second week of March. It was right before everything shut down. We were outside and we were doing a 13-hit combo from Taekwondo. That was the specific martial art that we were teaching our like students. And it was going super great until we got to the high kick, which has always been my struggle. I have always struggled with high kicks, even before I injured myself, but I was trying to encourage the students, and so I was doing it with them, and I felt my knee pop. I don't know if anyone here has ever felt that, but it is fucking horrendous. I was able to walk it off at the time, but the next day I was just like, oh no, I am gonna feel this if I try to walk on this leg. I stayed in bed for like a week and it just sucked. The specific part of my leg that is injured is my knee. And that's the reason why when I felt it pop, I just knew. I knew instinctively. I was like, oh my goodness. this is going to be a terrifying, awful experience for me if I try to walk tomorrow. So I decided not to do it. And then I was not in Greensboro this specific weekend for like one of the first times ever that I wasn't in Fayetteville or in Greensboro. I was near Charlotte, which was where the earthquake hit. And I woke up and I was out of bed and I was on my knee and I was like, oh, walking today is not going to be great. I've only had to do a little bit of walking this week, which is really good. I have actually mentioned that I injured my leg again to a few people, to people to whom it's relevant. I haven't like told everyone about it, and not even that many people know. Hey Zal, it's actually about to end. Sorry. But not even like that many people know that I have mobility issues because it's not something I talk about like on Facebook or anything, which is where like most of my offline friends are. So most of the people who know that I have mobility stuff are people who follow me on Twitter, where I've actually tweeted pretty regularly about what it's like living with mobility issues. And I'm starting to think that I should probably talk more about that because my mobility issues are not that bad, and I'm able to look able-bodied most of the time. So like most of the time people wouldn't look at me and guess that I have mobility issues. Even though I have hella mobility issues, and it's actually usually a much bigger problem than I let on. For instance, when I worked for UNCG this past year, which was the reason I moved back to Greensboro in the first place, I got a job working for my university. I worked in a building where I was on the second floor and there's no elevators. And to a lot of people, that's probably not that much of an issue. But when I talked about it with my supervisors, a healthy number of them were just like, yeah, we know this sucks and we're trying to get an elevator. And some of them hadn't even thought about it, which is really weird. I think it would be cool if more people were just like, hey, more buildings should have elevators. Because if you are not able to get your wheelchair up a set of stairs, that shouldn't keep you from being able to study abroad, which was one of the things that was on the second floor of that building. Theoretically, some of our peeps probably would have been able to have like a remote interview with you, which is something we've definitely started doing now because of COVID. But it's really weird to me that like we weren't doing that more often before this. Because at my specific university, the process for studying abroad involves starting like a digital application and then setting up an appointment to talk to a counselor and to like chat about like your options. All of our counselor people are on the second floor of our building, and it's one of the only buildings in the university without elevators, which is like a little fun fact if you ever go to UNCG. Most of our buildings, the overwhelming majority, including most of our older education buildings, have elevators. But it turns out that the Faust building, which was where I worked, does not have an elevator. And that sucks. That's just not a fun experience for literally anyone. And it's something that I hate more than Satan. Which isn't like that high of a bar. I don't believe in Satan. I'm an atheist. But still, like the whole concept fucking sucks. But yeah, I do think that now that we've been chatting for like a good hour or so, this is like probably a good time to say adios. I'm hoping that was my whiteboard. I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to show it to you. I just now realized that because I just sort of started talking and just sort of kept on going, that I didn't show you all the whiteboard. I sometimes use it on Twitch, very rarely, so it still has like Chillstream. But the rules here are still the same. Which is part of the reason why I didn't have to change anything, because the rules were originally written for the Chillstream. I'm gonna try to show all of it. Let's see. Yeah, whiteboard. It turns out lots of people, even on Twitch, also like the whiteboard. I don't know what its appeal is, but I mean, I literally got it to be in YouTube videos. I guess I'll tell one more story. The story behind this whiteboard is that my mom got it for me for my birthday last year when I was not last year, the year before last year when I was living in DC, because I said that I wanted one to have in YouTube videos, to have like in the background, like hanging on a wall, and just have like little messages that were related to the video written on it. And then when we tried to attach it to the wall, it said no. very decisively. It told us no and also told us to go fuck ourselves. So we realized very quickly that that was not a thing that we were going to be able to do. So we decided to stop. We tried to attach it to the wall like literally 15 times. This used to have stuff like this used to have like hooks and stuff that you could put on a wall. When I moved from DC to Greensboro, I did not take those hooks with me, so I don't have them now. But why don't you just put it on the dresser? So I actually could here, but I don't film like regular YouTube videos anymore. I want to. That's one of the things that I want to do. I don't just want to do like live stream content, because it turns out when I talk, I am extremely unfocused and I just sort of riff, which is not it's not always good. It's good for chill streams like this, where like we can just sort of hang out and we can just sort of chat. But it's not great for regular content. So yeah, I definitely need to work on that. I think that if I do start to film regular videos again, and I do have the equipment to, I just don't have like the video editing software, but I have like the video camera and all that stuff. I think that I probably will just put it on the wall, and I will like just write stuff on it that are related to the video. I think that would be like really fun. But yeah, now that it's been an hour, I am going to let y'all go. I hope that everyone has a great day. If you're here and if you enjoyed the video, I hope that you consider liking the video. If this was your first time meeting me, I like that you got to know me a little bit personally. You got to know some canon Lil Luciano facts. I've had a lot of fun, and I hope that you guys have too. I will talk to you later. We are going to try to do more live streams eventually. Summer's been hell in good and bad ways. I've really liked the summer on a personal level, but it's been super busy, so I haven't been able to do videos. I do have at least one interview coming up in the next few weeks. It's actually a pretty important interview that I'm going to be doing with someone who's kind of my boss, and I'm super excited for that. I just need to work out the details with her. But yeah, Smitty, Luciano lore. But yeah, I am super excited for y'all to meet Kim, who is my boss now, sort of. I do work for her, but I do like multiple jobs. So she is one boss that I have, but not the only boss that I have. That's a super fun thing that's going to be coming up. I just don't know when. So, but yeah, have fun at the Atheist Republic live stream. I don't watch their content, but I hope you enjoy it. Bye, Smitty. Peace out, everyone.